How's it going, everyone? You know what? I already know. Recently, Nintendo held its annual February Nintendo Direct, and we ended up getting one of the best directs I have ever seen. Metroid, Pikmin, Splatoon, Kirby, Zelda, Golden Sun kinda? The sheer range of genres and popular IPs covered was impressive. And while Tears of the Kingdom is my most anticipated game, the reveal that drew out the craziest reaction from me was a less than 20-second glance at the story DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 coming in Wave 4. The encounter shown in the beginning of the trailer is absolutely mind-blowing, and I can't even begin to fathom how confused non-Xenoblade Chronicles fans must be seeing people freak out over a teaser this short. And it was from this same teaser that I realized I might be getting exactly what I wanted from not only this DLC, but Xenoblade Chronicles 3 as a whole. And so I wanted to go ahead and not only just analyze this trailer, but talk about how this story DLC might change Xenoblade Chronicles 3 for me. With that in mind, and before we continue, if you are someone interested in playing the series and wish to remain spoiler-free, this is a warning that I will be diving into all things Xenoblade Chronicles related. If you're cool with spoilers or caught up on the series, welcome aboard! Additionally, there are some leaks that have been spreading which originated from a data mine of the latest DLC wave. I have not looked at them, nor do I plan to look at them, so rest assured I will not be discussing those leaks in this video, but I ask that you do not share them if you have, in order to respect not only your fellow fan, but everyone here in this community. Alright, so let's just address the Gogol in the room. Shulk and Rex are returning and fighting together against Alvis, or Antos, who we last saw in Xenoblade Chronicles 1 over a decade ago, ending the story on an incredibly optimistic note. This lines up with a popular theory, and one that I personally subscribe to, that Alvis was Console A, the only missing member of Mobius from the base game. This is all incredibly sick and feeds into my excitement, but at this point, it's more than just excitement. It's a hope. If you haven't watched my review of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I recommend checking it out as it's certainly a more in-depth representation of my thoughts. However, to summarize my general opinion, I thought the game was great and contains excellent characters as well as some moments that I would consider to be the best from the entire series. Yet, my largest criticisms were shallow villains with little screen time and, most relevant to this discussion, a vague or cursory exploration of certain story elements in favor of a more thematic approach. Yes, the Sword of the End and Ouroboros serving as spiritual successors to the Monado and Blade system due to the resonance with Melia and Nia, characters from the games these respective mechanics originated from, is a neat concept, but it still left me hungry, unlike how the Monado and Blades were explored in Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. I figured the DLC, especially as a prequel, could have the potential to satiate my hunger and maybe provide extra development I never knew I needed, just like Torna did. As hype as seeing Shulk, Rex, and Alvis was, this right here was the shot that convinced me that this story DLC might be exactly what I'm looking for. This is the founder of House Vandham, a man with a striking resemblance to Faye Xenogears, even down to the apparent focus on melee combat with his Lucky 7 glove. He was also one of the original Ouroboros users, alongside 5 other individuals, and despite not being officially confirmed, plenty of shots and text within the game imply that he is a descendant of N and M a couple generations down. Perhaps their great-grandchild, or something of the sort, as suggested by the line from the trailer. While there are theories that this founder could be N and M's child, I don't find that likely since the founders of House Doyle and Vandham are noted to be brother and sister, and her plaque in the Memorial Hall specifically says descended from the city's initial founders rather than born from. The more apparent reason is that we never see another sibling with N's son in the flashbacks. Shulk and Rex, although receiving statues to represent their houses, were not founders themselves, rather the mentors to them. The 6 founders did not join at once, but they each acted as the original wielders of Ouroboros. These 3 characters shown within the trailer have been memorialized within the city and the history of Ionios, which I feel very confident in saying this means the DLC story will weave a prequel tale detailing the founders, the early fight against Mobius, and the restoration of the city following N's assault. In my eyes, a prequel would allow for the writers to expand upon the world of Ionios, and provide continued development to the topics I wanted more from, like Ouroboros, Lucky 7, and the villains. I also know that some people theorize that this could be a sequel to the story, but there are a couple reasons that inherently clash with this idea. The most apparent variable is the presence of characters that existed before the events of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but also what appears to be an Agnian colony or settlement, which can be found on this stretch of land taken straight from the Bionis' leg. If this were a sequel taking place after the merging of the worlds, then this camp couldn't exist, as the concept of Agnes and Kevis were seemingly born from the bastardized world of Ionios. Furthermore, the statues mention how Rex and Shulk sustained injuries in the fight against Mobius, with Shulk losing his right arm like Dumban, and Rex lost an eye, yet the trailer shows the two before any such injuries were inflicted. Finally is what we can glean based on the location, or one of them, to be explored in this DLC. If you look at this shot of Neo Bionis' leg, as indicated by Ragul Bridge in Daxa's Shrine, you can see the hand of Mor Ardain in the distance. I spent some time looking for it, but in the completely wrong section of the map. But luckily, an absolute legend swooped in just like Dumban and bestowed me with knowledge. A big thank you to Noble Wrot on Twitter for this next bit of supporting information you're about to hear. If you head over to Erithia Sea, specifically Farview Cape on the western side, you can see the hand in the center abyss by origin. Furthermore, the finger positions and order seem to line up from this perspective. There's just one problem.
There's nothing there.
What? Like, no land? There's gotta be
There's nothing there.
At least in present-day Ionios. Several round indentations can be found on the border of Cadencia, which would point to the occurrence of annihilation effects. That means this location could have very well been wiped off the face of Ionios during or after the DLC story. Additionally, Hope's Rest is nearby, and this location used to be the home of the Founders before an attack scattered them, according to a denizen named Kotan from the city. Perhaps this very attack could be included in the story. There certainly is a chance that this scene with Rex, Shulk, and Elvis could be in the past, and then we jump ahead to a time later like the original Xenoblade Chronicles did with its prologue, but even then, I think it's likely that most of the game will be a prequel to the main story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and the final moments or cutscene jump forward to sync themselves with the present, giving the story a sense of finality since, according to Takahashi, they want to move on from here. Everything is adding up to this being the last piece of narrative content that'll revolve around Klaus's experiment. Torna employed this very tactic with its conclusion, and I thought it was a wonderful send-off for all rest. Regardless, a prevalent theme in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is the limitations put on passing down information due to the structure of the world, which leads to a present-day people that are unaware of how some systems fully work. With a prequel, you can shed light on these aspects as we peer into the old world knowledge just like Torna managed to accomplish. But the aspect which interests me the most about Ouroboros that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 hints at but never officially shows is that the form has different tiers of mastery. There are two pieces of evidence that support this. The first comes from this conversation between Lanz and Neo.
And thanks to that, we became Ouroboros.
Yes, but not completely. Huh? Remember, have you not succumbed to Mobius's power before?
And the second component comes from the House Vandham plaque. The founder realized fully the power of Ouroboros, heretofore limited, and fought against N, ousting him. These snippets intersect to show that we haven't seen the full extent of Ouroboros, and it's incredibly likely that the DLC story could be the one to not only explore Ouroboros in its beginnings through the original wielders, but reveal a transformation from an earlier type to what we're more familiar with. This could be discovered mid-battle against N in a well-choreographed hype boss battle like what happened previously with the Monado 2 and Numa, or it could be a crucial point of the plot with the characters traveling in an attempt to discover the method to mastering the Ouroboros form. Either way, it has the potential to grant extra depth to Xenoblade Chronicles 3's central component and make me appreciate its implementation in the base game more as a result. Fueling this conclusion further is that the founder manifests his Ouroboros behind him, much like a stand, without the use of a partner. This is where I believe things get interesting because, as we've previously discussed, Ouroboros is a form dependent on the synchronization between two individuals to merge into one being. To bring that power out by oneself is unprecedented, and could spell some new developments for the form and the DLC. I currently see two possible routes. As the original wielders, what we're seeing is the raw, unrefined form of Ouroboros that eventually evolved over the years. Or, on the complete opposite side of things, B. This is a honed form of Ouroboros, or perhaps even the mastered one. The only issue I find with this notion is that it feels weird narratively, as it's almost reverse scaling when Noah and Mio's use of the form is taken into account. Torna managed to execute this idea of the power-up in a more typical sense. When Mithra enters her trance in the battle versus Malos, she seems to take one step closer to Numa with the upgraded blade, but it's too much for Adam and not a complete transformation since it's coming from a spring of negative emotions. It comes full circle in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, nearly 500 years later, when Rex carries on Adam's legacy to help Mithra accept herself. That's honestly beautiful, and we'd essentially be getting the reverse here if every part of the story is tethered to the past. Thus, I'm more inclined to believe this brief depiction is the unrefined form that will be perfected eventually. The founder of House Doyle was apparently lost following N's original attack, and ultimately brought the power of Ouroboros to completion. So what we might be seeing is Vandham's founder before the two came together and ascended the form. There's also the thought process that Noah and Mio did indeed master it, or at least hit that level of mastery a bit as shown with Console X not being able to stop them, which means that the form just has a very non-dramatic turn. Although the specifics behind Ouroboros' inclusion are difficult to grasp at the current moment, this is the discussion that excites me, as to me it translates into more Ouroboros lore. After walking away from my stream, I initially thought the Ouroboros was the same as Mio's. However, I'm less inclined to believe that now. Although it's quite difficult to parse out every detail considering the minimal screen time in conjunction with the loose, transparent silhouette, some details on the head don't seem to match up properly with Mio's Ouroboros. Every Ouroboros wielder in the base game possessed a different form from their companions, and I feel that's likely the case here. Now, let's speak on my other main criticism, the Rogues Gallery. By nature of adding more story to a world, the characters within said world are subsequently going to get more development or screen time. If this is indeed a prequel set generations before Noah and the party liberated the world from Mobius's grasp, then we are practically guaranteed to be dealing with those very same eternal beings. Does that mean if there is a Console D that it is guaranteed to still be Dirk? Not necessarily, since it's likely a good chunk of Mobius would have been felled over the centuries of combat with Ouroboros. But we could infer that some of them managed to survive all this time, much like the guaranteed ones in N, M, and Z. If these individuals are still around, that gives them more opportunity to receive further development. Zed, for example, was a character I really liked conceptually, but wasn't completely enthralled by them due to their meager presence. This DLC could change that. However, the real star of the show is the most recent reveal, which is Alvis. Sporting slim, light wings similar to Zanza and floating in front of a rift from Future Connected, he seems to have gone rogue, and this already creates an intriguing dynamic. Shulk, who knows Alvis from his journeys, would be reserved to strike him down, while a grown-up Rex who has seen what a corrupt member of the Trinity Processor can do, and has no connection to Alvis, might not have the same reservations. Just like how Malos was influenced by their driver Amalthus, I think it's very likely that Alvis, as another member of the Trinity Processor, finds himself affected by Shulk and carrying out a distorted version of his wish, or hell, even Zanza, as evident with the wings, Minato, and explaining why Zanza the Divine played for the Fog King's first phase. As someone who is still in some ways hesitant about bringing back Shulk and Rex in a way that continues off of the endings of their respective games, that relationship on paper is alluring and could be translated into a compelling story beat that would justify bringing them back. Although Shulk, Rex, and the House Vandham founders' goal isn't clear from a baker's dozen number of seconds, I have one theory. Leanne mentions in her quest Writer's Block that the founders traveled the world looking for a new land. I'm not entirely sure what new land they would be searching for, but perhaps it was a misinterpretation. After all, the quest ends in the items found not being related to the founders, but people they once knew. So the fact that they all were searching for something might be true, however what they were looking for might have been lost to time. Maybe by looking for a new land, they are searching for the place Alvis dwells, or the scattered people following N's attack on the city. I think it's fair to say that this is the most riveting part of the trailer to a lot of people, and I think I also fall in that camp if my reaction wasn't enough to show that.
Holy crap!
There are also a number of other details I feel this DLC would likely explore, such as the beginnings of the homecoming rite that came from the Founders, the disappearance of House Vandham's founder, perhaps the freeing of the Founders from House Ortiz and Rhodes, and even some nods to future connected with the presence of rifts. And there's probably going to be a conduit, yet that's a lot for a DLC that might not exceed 20 hours. Could I be getting my hopes up too high and having unreal expectations for this DLC? Yeah, that's certainly a possible case scenario, and this DLC might be serving a different purpose for me than it will for other fans of Xenoblade Chronicles Free, but I just want to believe it will, especially considering how fantastic of a package their last DLC story was with Torna. Nevertheless, if my thoughts do happen to somehow be perfectly spot on, which I highly doubt is going to happen, and I don't even think I would want that, my underlying belief is that the Ouroboros in the world of Ionios will be delved into much more, with the use of returning fan-favorite characters as a bridge. I don't know what else I could possibly ask for than that. To loosely sum up my current sentiment on how this extra story will play out, here it is. The story begins with the characters already integrated into the world of Ionios, and shortly after, the party composed of the current Ouroboros wielders and their mentors will set out to free their kids from their respective colonies, who are the founders of House Rhodes and Ortiz. House Ortiz's founder would be Shulk's child, while House Rhodes would be Rex's. After these two have been freed from their flame clocks, Zed sends N to attack the city as retaliation. Thus, the Ouroboros wielders, although too late as the people have either been scattered or killed by N, arrive at the old city to defeat him. At this point, the brother and sister discover the mastered form of Ouroboros, or at least one more reminiscent of the combined form seen in the base game. Following N's defeat, Alvis makes his debut, and this leads to the city's ultimate destruction and Founder Doyle becoming separated. The ending of the story is where I'm a lot more unsure on how it could possibly play out, but I ultimately believe it might end in a time jump. Perhaps this could be used to explain where the House Vandham founder went. Maybe he ended up pulling a little bit of a Lacan and found something interesting in the frozen tundra of Capricorn Peak. Just spitballing. But anyways, I want to know your guys' thoughts on the upcoming extra story coming away 4. Are you excited, or perhaps a bit bummed that they might be going in the direction they are with it? I always read every comment that pops up, so feel free to leave your thoughts and strike up some conversation with others, as I'd love to check those out. Also, if you are interested in seeing more Xenoblade content, or just video game analyses in general, consider subscribing to the channel, as I got plenty of more Xenoblade stuff to talk about, Zelda's gonna be coming out soon, and yeah, a lot of other miscellaneous stuff. On that note, thank you all for watching, and I will see you very soon with an announcement for my next endeavor here on the channel. Until next time. Galgar will be returning in the Xenoblade Chronicles Free DLC, you heard it here first.